Welcome, Fed Options Pro fam. We are here today to talk about the two keys to contributions within the TSP. Now, if you don't know, I'm Cassie Graves, the founder and president of Fed Options, and we currently are a support service for financial professionals working with federal employees. We want to help you too. So we're going to dive a little bit into the TSP contribution, the match. What does all that look like? And if you want to know more about how we can help your business boost your credibility and trust with the employees, go ahead, like, subscribe, of course, to stay up to tune with all the latest and greatest content that we're posting. But also, you can reach out to me via email or on my calendar. Of course, we'll have those links down in the descriptions and comments section. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, grab a time on my calendar, and let's see how we can help you boost your business with the federal employee communities you serve. Okay, so like I talked about, we're going to jump into the TSP contribution amounts, how they actually work, and what does that look like for employees? Like, what are the minimums, the maximums, right? Those are the two keys that we need to be talking about. There are certain minimums that they may want to think about within the TSP, and there are definitely some maximums that they want to consider on a per pay period basis and all that throughout the year, so they don't lose any any matching contributions to the TSP. So let's jump into it here. I'm going to share my screen. See, we're going to talk about contribution types. Okay, so of course, every pay period, then an employee is allowed to contribute a certain amount into their TSP, or they cannot contribute at all. I mean, they don't have to, but it's probably a good idea. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What does that look like? So if you're unaware, there's an automatic 1% contribution that goes into an employee's TSP, whether they do it or not themselves. And so with that, for FERS and BRS, so this does include military in the blended retirement system as well, but we're not going to talk about that. Obviously, this can still pertain to those types of employees, but for all intents and purposes, we work directly with the federal employee community. So we'll jump into military maybe at another segment, but that's not the purpose of today's content. So anyways, the agency matches an automatic 1% that is taken out of the employee's pay. And it's generally a pre-tax basis, unless, of course, they decide otherwise. But look here, with BRS, members do not receive these contributions until they have served at least 60 days. So that's the exception for the blended retirement system. But I wanted to give you guys a heads up, though, because it's not dollar for dollar like every percentage that they put in, right? So if your first BRS participant, then you can receive the agency matching contributions for the first 5%. So here's how it breaks down, though. They get the automatic 1%. Then for the first 3% that the employee contributes, it's a dollar for dollar match by the agency. Okay, here's where it gets really tricky. For the next 2%, it's matched 50 cents on the dollar because they already get the 1% automatic, right? So altogether, if they put in 5% of the TSP, then they'll get 5%. But if they're only doing 3%, they get 4% of the match. Okay. But they miss out on that 1%. So very key, hey, why not get free money while you can, right? So that's how the matching works. So this is really key when we see that employees aren't matching the minimum amount of the 5%, then we give you what that looks like on the financial basis. How much money are they losing out on per year? And then what amount do they need to contribute per pay period in order to receive that full match? So very, very key here when you're talking to FERS and or blended retirement systems, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on what that looks like. And of course, here's the breakdown, right? This is straight off of tsp.gov too. You can see here where that link is. It's about making that contributions. What does that look like? So it breaks it down right here, right? The automatic 1% for the agency match is a total of 1% going into the TSP. So if somebody doesn't think that they have a TSP, they probably do, even if they haven't been contributing. And so then biweekly it breaks down 1%, 2%, right? And it shows you exactly what those total percents are for how much the employee is contributing, or I'm sorry, how much the employer, which is the government, is contributing based on how much the employee is contributing and getting, right, from that. And this is the total here. So that's what that looks like as far as the matching contribution. And so just wanted to give you guys a heads up on what that looked like as far as the minimums. Okay, so that's the first key, is making sure that employees are contributing the minimum. The second key to matching contributions and TSP contributions is not over contributing too early, right? So we don't have this quite written out, but we'll talk about what the contribution limits are, and then we'll break them down per pay period, right? I don't know if you guys are aware, I have a little thing called a handy dandy here. That's what I call my calculator. Really helps me break down super simple math into some layman's terms here. So for anybody who is in the government under age 50, they can contribute up to the elective deferral amount of $24,500. Okay, so if they were to do that and break it down per pay period, that would be $942.31. Okay, so that's the maximum per pay period they should be contributing if any employee is under the age of 50. All right. And if they contribute that amount, obviously they'll get the 5% match and they won't miss out on any matching at the end of the year. And we'll talk about what the consequence is. I have a little bonus here. Talk about what the consequence is if an employee does over contribute too early into the retirement system. And we'll talk about what that looks like here in a moment. But for anybody under the age of 50, they should at least do obviously the 5%, maximum the 942.31 per pay period, or they'll lose the matching, and we don't want that, right? So very important there. Anybody who is eligible for catch-up contribution, so that's an employee who's over the age of 50, can at least contribute 8,000. But you can see here, this is this contribution, or I'm sorry, catch-up contribution limit is for employees age 50 to 59 and age 64 and older. Okay, so very, very key. Remember, they changed the contribution limit for employees who will turn 60, 61, 62, and 63 this year to be a higher amount. We'll talk about that in a minute, okay? But anybody who is over age 50 and not between 60 and 63 can contribute another 8% into that retirement system. So let's break that down. 500 plus the 8,000, that gives us a total of 32,500 that an employee can contribute for the year. What does that break down per pay period? Divide that by 26, and we have $1,250 per pay period an employee can contribute. So if they're within these ages and they're putting in more, whether it's both traditional and Roth or one or the other, doesn't matter, okay? It's going to go on the combined total of traditional and Roth contributions. So with that being said, if an employee is contributing more than that $1,250 per pay period, they are over contributing if they are within these age ranges and not eligible for the extra catch-up contribution, okay? So very, very key. All right, so now let's talk about participants who are going to be age 60, 61, 62, or 63 this year. Obviously, as you can see here, they got a little bit of a higher contribution limit for the year. And so with that, we've got the 24,500 plus the 11,250 that breaks down, or that totals rather, the $35,750. Divide that by 26, and we get a per pay period amount of $1,375. That means an employee can contribute $1,375 per pay period into the TSP. Again, that is the combined amount for traditional and Roth. All of these amounts that we're giving you on a per pay period basis is for the combined traditional and Roth contribution amount. Okay, so very key here. If you have an employee who's over contributing, and I've seen this with a lot of the higher income earners in the federal government, where they are, front loading their TSP, maybe they're contributing 2,000, 1,500, 1,700 per pay period into the TSP. Bad idea. Because what happens is once these amounts for whatever age they fall under, right? Once those amounts are met, TSP stops those contributions. What does that mean for an employee? Since they're not contributing anymore, then they are not only not putting in their amount, but the agency is not putting in their matching contribution amount. Okay, so be very mindful of that. They will put in the automatic 1%, but they are missing out on that matching money from the government by over contributing. Ouch. That doesn't sound like a lot because, they're putting in so much, but guess what? How much free money are they missing out on? That isn't even theirs, that the government's willing to put in there. And that's just more on top of it, right? You might as well spread it out per pay period and then also receive that matching. And how much more are you getting then, right? Because for the employee, they're not putting in any more. They're literally maxing out how much they can contribute. You might as well do it on a per pay period basis and get the most out of the agency matching within that. So those are the two keys there to the contributions within the TSP. Of course, reach out for more if you've got any other questions regarding the TSP and what that looks like for agency matching contributions. We can help break down those amounts for you on an individual basis by utilizing our Fed Options Command Center support service. So until next time, thank you guys so much for your time and have a very blessed day. I appreciate you guys, of course, liking, subscribing, and joining the Fed Options Pro family. Have a great night.